Okay, components with known vulnerabilities. This is a really interesting vulnerability because it's a really big one. We're going to take a look at the example of it in our Try Hack Me platform, so just navigate to your OWASP top 10 and you will have it under task 27, 28 and task 29. So what exactly is this vulnerability? Well, applications can run on certain software. And this can be any software from Tomcat to WordPress, to using PHP, to using different types of databases, and all of that. And all of those softwares had some type of vulnerabilities in the previous versions of them. Now, what happens is that many websites and many companies don't regularly update their software. So a good example here is that it says, let's say that a company hasn't updated their version of WordPress for a few years. And using a tool such as VPS-Scan, you find its version 4.6. Some quick research will reveal that WordPress 4.6 is vulnerable to an unauthenticated remote code execution exploit. So many of these softwares, well-known softwares, have known vulnerabilities for previous applications. And this vulnerability occurs once an application is running a software that is outdated and that has a known vulnerability. Now, this is a big topic that doesn't really have anything to do with bug bounty, but we're covering it nonetheless because this is also something that you want to search for. So in this example, I have already started my virtual machine and you can start it on task number 29. The task that we have is how many characters are in /etc/passwd file. We can use this command to determine that. So let's give it a try. Let's copy the IP address of our machine and copy it straight into the browser. Okay. So it opens this application that's called Online CSE Bookstore. And since we already know what type of vulnerability this is, we would actually try to scan it for different technologies that this application runs. What web server it has, what programming languages does it use, and all of that. But particularly, we also want to check out the application name. So for example, this online bookstore could be something that is used widely and that actually has some known vulnerabilities. How can we determine whether it has known vulnerabilities? Well, we can just copy its name and try to find something on Google. Now, make sure that you don't confuse this vulnerability with the vulnerability where we covered with default credentials. Default credentials are something else. That is the mistake of the owner that they didn't really change their default credentials. It's not a software vulnerability. However, this might have a software vulnerability, and by the results that we get, it does indeed have them. We get 2 results, or even 3 results right here, but only the first 2 are on famous exploit website, which is called exploit-db.com. On this website, you will have a bunch of different exploits for a bunch of different outdated versions of software. Let's go with this first one first. It's called Online Bookstore, Unauthenticated Remote Code Execution. This is really a serious vulnerability. And how this website works is it gives us the code to the exploit. In this specific example, the code is written in Python. Now, we can download the code by clicking on this button, and what's good for us is that we don't really need to know what exactly this code does, even though that is something that you want to get used to. You want to get used to reading code, and even better would be if you were to learn some programming language, because you will need it sooner or later once you get into this field of ethical hacking and bug bounty. Nonetheless, we're not going to refer to this code that much because programming is not a topic for this course. However, we're going to download this code and run it and see what it does. And that is also another reason why you actually want to learn programming. You don't want to be running any type of exploits on your machine. If you don't know what this code does, then you won't really know what it will do on your machine. It might do something malicious, you never know, especially when you're downloading exploits from some sketchy site. Nonetheless, this is exploitdatabase.com, and it should have a working exploit for us, so let's open the folder where we downloaded our Python code, and it's called 47887.py. To run it, we can open terminal in this folder, and we can simply type python3 and then the file name. Hopefully this will give us some help menu that will tell us how exactly can we run this program. In this case, the help menu says, error, the following arguments are required. URL, which is pretty common sense. We need to specify which target are we attacking with this exploit, and in our case, it will be this target. So let's copy the IP address to our online bookstore, and let's go back to our terminal and run our exploit like this. Let's paste the clipboard and press enter. Do you wish to launch a shell here? Let's specify Y for yes. And here it is. We opened a remote command shell, and now we can execute the commands on the target system. If I type who am I, it will give me the result. If I type ls, it will also give me the result, and now I'm pretty much on that machine. I can do whatever I want on it. And this is the power of exploiting outdated version of software. We got the remote code execution vulnerability, and now to finish it off, let's go right here. Let's copy the command that they tell us to run. Let's paste it right here and run it. And the output that we get is 1611. Let's copy that, specify it right here as our answer, and submit. And it's the correct answer. So you saw how serious this can be. You can be protected by all of these bugs such as SQL injection, such as XSS, HTML injection, XXC, and all the others that we covered, but if you're running outdated software with a known vulnerability, there is most likely going to be a code out there online or an exploit out there online that we can just download and run and get straight into that machine. We pretty much gained access to it in 2 seconds from running this exploit. But even when you find something like this, that's not where you want to stop. There could be other vulnerability as well. For example, we did notice, let me go back, we did notice another link right here that is from exploit.db. Whoops, I have no idea where I went. Yeah, it's this link right here from exploit.db, and it could be another exploit. So we want to take a look at that one as well. And this one seems to be an HTTP request. Let's read through it. CSE bookstore is vulnerable to an authentication bypass vulnerability on the admin panel. By default, the admin panel is located at /admin.php, and the administrator interface can be accessed by unauthorized users exploiting the SQL injection vulnerability. We're already familiar with SQL injection, so let's give it a try. Why not? Even though we found the vulnerability and we finished the task, we still want to discover all the other vulnerabilities. So let's see how can we access the admin panel without actually manually adding /admin, and here's the admin login page. Let's click on that. We get the login screen, so let's try with the basic SQL injection test single quote or 1 = 1 with single quotes, and we use the same thing in the query. Let's submit this. Oops, yeah, we're logging in as admin. We don't really want to use the SQL injection as the name, we only want to use it as the password. So here we're simply going to type single quote space or single quote 1 single quote equals single quote 1. Let's submit the query, and here it is. Our SQL injection worked, and we found the second vulnerability, and now we're logged in as admin. How cool is that? We even used knowledge from some previous section to exploit another vulnerability on this page. Cool. Now that we covered this, we're only left to cover one more thing in the next lecture, which is called insufficient logging and monitoring. See you there.